Jazakumullah. Now the next.
Hazur wanted to add something to yesterday's topic.
Would you remind me of what?
Yes, لا تقتلوا أولادكم خشية إملاق.
Oh, that's right. And I wanted to add something, right?
Yeah.
One thing I mentioned definitely and explained, of course, as to why Islam takes strong exception to the practice of birth control for the fear lest the food should be left behind, right?
Yes.
And I gave examples from the history of mankind as to prove that at no cross-section of history there was not enough sufficient food to sustain the requirements, to sustain life as such and to meet the requirements. Sometimes it was because of enmities prevailing between people and people. Some people were rich, some were poor, and they did not care whether they die of hunger or whatever other calamity. So this carelessness on the part of man is producing all these problems. The question which I had in mind to raise was that why did God produce such possibilities for people to be careless about others? Now this has to be answered, and the answer is very simple. If God had not created the life on earth, the human life on earth, for the sake of trial, if God had not created options for it to be good or bad, then there is no purpose of creating humans, because then angels are already there to perform this function. So to create human requires that they should be given a chance to grow evil if they like. And when they grow evil, then they are responsible for all the punishment which ensues through natural means and natural laws. It's not a punishment of sin as such, as it is a punishment of a cause which must result in a, in its consequences. So the term is cause and effect. It is an accepted logical term. So if you use that, then I can say every cause must end up in an effect. So all that humans do, they create things and situations which as an effect of their behavior rebounds on them. And they themselves collectively are responsible for their suffering. This is a profound principle of creation which should not be ignored in studying these matters. If God had failed in creating a system of reproduction, of food production, to match with the speed of reproduction, then God would be blamed, of course. But the Holy Quran has not only claimed but has proved throughout the history of human progress that im min shayn a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim im min shayn illa indana khaza'inuhu wa ma nunazziluhu illa biqadarin ma'lum. That there is nothing of which we do not have ample treasures, inexhaustible treasures, but we make them descend according to the requirements of the time and age. So one should remember that with the advancement of human society, along with the scientific knowledge it gained, the resources of man were also increased. And this is the meaning of this verse. So man was not left alone to strive for its existence without any aid from God. God created measures and released them appropriately at certain times, so that if man wanted to benefit from them, he would still be able to produce enough food for its survival. Now, to think of the discovery of coal, and the energy which was gained from coal and was employed in a manner that it helped the survival of man on earth. Think of the discovery of oils and how they have become so instrumental in increasing the production of food all over the world. These tractors, these modern methods of cultivation, all owe their working to the petrol which God created long before, billions of years before. Not billions, but say 500 or 6 million years before. That shows that God has kept His promise, and He is capable of providing man with all his food requirements if he behaves properly. Then the food would be there for him to enjoy and distribute properly. But if he becomes mischievous, then God should not be blamed for the mischief of man, which is created for his trial. Without his being able to be mischievous, he will not be tried. And without trial, the option will not mean anything. So the entire scheme of creation of human beings will fall and collapse. So these are very intricate subjects. One should remember them, that they are intricate subjects. Just a casual objection against something created by God should not be taken seriously. The creation of God is so intricate, so wonderful, so perfectly balanced, that no man can change, even make even or suggest even a slight change which will turn the balance on different side. So this verse of the Quran is still valid in this age, that do not do family planning or exercise birth control for the fear that the food will become short. Food will not be short. You may mishandle it. Now sometimes when I discuss this issue with the Western questioner, intelligentsia, when they come to my, or when they came to my question answer sessions, it was the excuse suggested was that huge transportation is required. It's not just a question of the price of food which we wasted because it was overmuch. It is a question of how that enormous quantity of food could be transported to suffering humanity in Africa. If we utilize all our resources, still we will not have sufficient means to maintain this operation and to meet the costs. See? So they say it is a genuine, a genuine excuse. We are unable to do it because we know the people are dying there, but they have their own faults as well. When United Nations tried to export food to this Abyssinia, what is Ethiopia, the Ethiopians themselves, belonging to the different faction who were fighting with each other, they destroyed the convoys, they killed the drivers, and they made it impossible for the food to reach where it was needed. Now this was an objection raised by some sensible audience in the meetings, and they knew these facts very well. So in response to that, I must inform you and others that the purpose of this exercise of mine is not to blame the Western people at all. It has nothing to do with it. My purpose is to blame human immorality. And human immorality, if found among the black people, still remains immorality. So the cause of suffering will still be really attributed to immorality rather than shortage of resources. You see, huge airlifts were organized by United Nations, but they couldn't work because of immoral behavior of the people occupying that land, which stood between the drop of food and the spots where the supply had to be conveyed, transported. So everywhere is the human misbehavior which results in these problems. And also human callousness plays a role, a negative role, very prominently. Now, I don't want to criticize Saudians or anybody, any Muslim government as such, but everybody knows that they have mountains of money, oil dollars, on which they are sitting and enjoying life as if the rest of the Muslim world does not exist. While you have noticed many a time the Bengalis confronting severe crises of hurricanes and the damage they did to the standing crops, resulting in large-scale famine. Although the governments, begged from this country and that country and tried to tidy up the things, still a very large number of Muslims in Bangladesh suffered. Why didn't Kuwait or America or Arabia, Saudi Arabia or other oil-rich countries do anything about it? When Sudan was dying of hunger, most of them, a large minority among them, were Muslims. What were they doing? If Europeans did not have any transport, Saudians, if they had released their money, only a very small trickle, could provide all the resources required for the transportation, because the Western countries are mostly economic minded. If they have their economic gain in something, they would employ their resources to get the benefit of that possibility. So if some respectable size of money was offered by Saudi Arabia to the Germans, to the British, etc., please transport food to our brothers dying of hunger and we'll foot the bill, they would immediately respond. There's no doubt about it. So it's exactly the opposite which I am trying to tell you now. I'm not blaming the West for the lack of interest in the dying and suffering humanity. I'm blaming a wrong attitude, which is more pronounced among the Muslims in case of the Muslims suffering from droughts and famines. Because it was the prime responsibility of the Muslim community to get organized and launch a huge campaign of providing them relief. No such thing was done there. In Europe, of course, small trickles were created, but by the Christians and the other European believers and non-believers, but not by Muslims. So don't misunderstand me. It's not an attack on a race or a religion. It's an attack on human lethargy and human lack of morality, which is more pronounced among the Muslims in this case than it is pronounced among the Christians. This is why I said it's a very important issue. I must complement what I said with this additional observation. Otherwise, the listeners or viewers will be left with a completely different impression than the one I want to create, right? So the last word of advice is the Muslim countries should continue to produce as many children as they can possibly. but with the promise that they will not, out of their own miserliness, permit them to die of hunger. If the time for aid would come, they would most certainly help them to survive. If this is the total commitment of the Ummah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then they can produce even 1 billion more Muslims, no problem. They can be fed properly.